track of questions that are going to come in on our Facebook page and on our website.
Okay.
Because we have comments on the Facebook page, and then we have our own forum on our own chat room on the website. Our usual chat room moderator, Jack, I think he is sick, so I'm going to be probably doing that duty tonight. So you don't have to look at all the chat rooms, and you don't have to be distracted by all that stuff. We'll watch all that stuff, and I'll grab questions when they come in. We put them into a Google Doc during the show, and then we'll ask you questions off the Google Doc. So don't worry about. You don't have to be on any websites or trying to interact with people on Facebook or anything. You can just yeah. What would you like to have displayed under your name when you're speaking? Your title, your lower third.
I saw one before. It was just fine. Durin Gleeves, product manager, audio, whatever. I'm not picky.
Okay. Do you have a point of contact that you provide, or do you say, please contact me through customer support, or how do you do that?
You could certainly use @Durin Gleeves, which is my Twitter handle.
Okay.
That'll work.
All right. Do you get mentioned on Twitter like all the time? Do you have to deal with that a lot?
No, I luck out in that. I guess our users are not a particularly vocal bunch.
Okay.
I'll get called out once in a while here and there,
Yeah.
but it gives me an excuse to use Twitter more often.
Are you mandated to do so by Adobe?
No, but they're in their infinite wisdom. A couple years ago, they decided to consolidate all of the different Twitter services and handles and stuff, and so I lost it at Adobe Audition. And while they've now learned their lesson, it's too late, and so I'm relegated to using my personal one for a while.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Well, at least we found you.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah. Audition was the first. We made an account just after Twitter kind of launched, and so we had been doing it for a couple of years before Adobe got around to this. Hey, social media is important. Let's get on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
And at that point, we had the largest follower base, and so they kind of took over our account and turned it into the video and audio account.
Oh, wow. It's kind of funny. We've gone full circle on the show. We started with an iMac, then we had a Hackintosh PC, then we got a Mac Pro Tower, then we got a MacBook Pro, and now we're on a Windows 10 PC. We've done every iteration to do the shows you can imagine. We had a custom-built PC for the show now.
Oh, that's great.
Because it just...
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm seeing a lot of lifelong Mac users starting to break out and go to Windows a little bit here and there.
Yeah, it's happening here and there. Yeah. We didn't really want to do it, but the softwares that we were using, the vMix is a strictly Windows 10 platform.
Yeah.
And we had to leave behind Wirecast, which is Telestream. We had to leave them behind. We were having too many support issues, so that was a big, scary move, but we've adapted.
Yeah, what was I looking at recently? Was it vMix? Is that the open source one?
OBS.
OBS, that's what I'm thinking of.
Which is not bad. I mean, if you're doing something on the simple side, it does the trick.
Yeah, well, the fact that everything's starting to support NDI, which is a new tech protocol, and they're kind of giving it away. They want to be able to support it and make it an unofficial standard, I think. So, apps we have like Character Animator are already supporting NDI for video streaming.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I saw demos of that on the Wirecast YouTube channel.
Yeah. And so, keep your eyes open. So we're probably going to be taking a stronger look at at NDI for capture as well.
Very
Cool. All right, we got time to run the news.
I'm still getting my YouTube
Okay.
act together here. Kind of got sent down a rabbit hole, and I kind of got steered away from where I need to be here. YouTube channel, Studio Beta. It's running iOS 12.
Was that for me? I'm sorry.
Oh no, I apologize for
We're running through about.
in studio.
Gotcha.
See, now no one's asked why I have this large slice in my forehead.
You know what? You with a damage to your forehead, it seems so commonplace these days. I just need to ask you.
You don't see it on camera. Yeah. No, I'm having Klingon reassignment surgery.
It's not PC. What happened? Did you whack something?
Bought a pair of sunglasses, and the nose pad fell off. And I pulled them off when I pulled into Pat Sweeney's place.
Yeah.
And I walk in and he says, "What's wrong with your forehead?" I'm like, "WTF?" Bleeding all over the place. What? No, I bought them at a gas station in Buffalo. At a gas station I trust.
Totally legit.
Yeah. That was $16 not well spent.
$16 Oakleys.
They weren't Oakleys.
They're all made in the same place.
Right. Any luck?
It looks like it's good to go, but I'm trying to find the actual video to grab the link from. See, it's right here.
Mm-hmm.
It says live. Live control room. Let's try that.
Something new?
Well, YouTube changes the user interface, it will, and then you feel like you have to relearn it again. Just like you log in the next week, and it's a whole new thing, and you're like, what?
It seems to be streaming.
Live dashboard. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Within
I'll
your
just
body.
sit on my hands.
So go like this. Talk with your hands. When I talk with my hands, I'll do the T-Rex. In studio or remote?
Tilly. It's going to be
It's
recorded.
going to be pre-record, so we're not actually even going to have a live interview next time. So it's actually going to be relatively easy. Pretty much. Yeah, because our guest is in Germany, so brutal live interview time slot. 3 a.m.
Yeah. Of course, I have no idea where I'm going to be getting.
But the irony is he's here that week. He's here the weekend before the show in L.A.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? Are we interviewing him?
I've got to figure out some way to interview him, but Catherine has not told me how we're going to do that.
Okay.
Which contraption? That one there? Just push it out of the way then.
Weigh more than 120, so you're good, Michael.
We don't need what? What are we going to do?
Can I just move this?
Oh, because it's in the shot?
Yeah.
That makes it easy.
I got to find a Dodger magnet to put on the back of your car.
Yeah, well, that will come off in 20 seconds. Go for it.
I wonder how long the Eagles magnet I stuck on there was there. Not long, huh?
Well, Josh works with this kid who's an Eagles fan, but he knows if it was you or him.
Oh.
I was there first, and I
Yeah.
All we know is that the chance of there being a Bills or a Sabre sticker on there is pretty remote. And I was in Buffalo, where I'm from. All right.
YouTube's hot.
I gave you a link.
GTT, yeah. Not VOBS. I can't use VOBS.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah, that's GTT.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll cold read it. It's not very long.
I'm just trying to get the embed going right
Yeah.
now. Test, make sure everybody sees and hears us.
All right.
I'm gonna check playback on YouTube.
All right. Just doing some final checks before we blast off here. All right.
Test.
Testing. All right, now she hears you. Okay.
There's our lovely music.
It's not gonna feed on our webpage. Just doing some final checks before we blast off. Audio is doubled. Test.
Okay, YouTube's got audio.
We're getting an echo. My audio's off.
Well, they would have for a split for 10 seconds. Last chance. Speak now, forever hold your peace, audience, chat room. Make sure to tell us you like what you hear and what you see.
Looks like it.
No video on VOBS.tv. Do I read? Oh, somebody not following instructions. Paul Stefano says no embedded video on VOBS. We know, Paul. Oh, we know.
Yes.
You have to click the watch this video on YouTube and pop out another window. Thanks to mysterious behind-the-scenes YouTube things that are not allowing us to embed our own show on our website. It's on the YouTube channel. It's also on Facebook.
No, we want them to watch now. If they're there.
Our live audience puts up with a lot of crap. We really appreciate it. Okay, I think everything's good for go.
Thank you for listening to Seaberg1000.com.
Yeah, I'm not getting anything on YouTube here.
That's because we're not on our own web. We're not on the YouTube channel. We're not on our channel. We're on my channel.
Oh, okay.
If you click the link from VOBS.tv, it takes you right there. If you click this, watch this video.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Looks like crap.
Actually,
All right.
that was an old link.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. Okay, thank you. Alrighty. It's Monday night once again, and we're here for Voiceover Body Shop. A little bit on the geeky side tonight.
Yes.
Yes.
My kind of show.
Not too geeky. We're going to try and keep it simple. Durin Gleeves is going to be joining us from Adobe Audition. He's a product manager there. And we're going to learn a little bit more about this deep and powerful, yet extremely useful software for voice actors.
Yes, we are. This Durin I've seen at many trade shows like AAS, NAM, NAB. It's so cool that we finally got him for the show right here. It's been a very busy week for them over at Adobe last week.
Yes, and it's been a very busy week for us
Yes, it
as
has.
well. And
We've
we'll talk
all
about
been doing that.
We'll talk about our travels and some of the cool stuff we
Yeah.
did this last week and why we weren't here last week. All that, your questions, and all sorts of stuff coming up on VoiceOver Body Shop right now.
Two men, twin sons from different mothers, with a passion for voiceover recording technology and the desire to make recording easy for voice actors everywhere. Together in one place. George Whittam, the home studio engineer to the stars, a Virginia Tech grad with an unmatched knowledge of all the latest gear and technology in voiceover today. Dan Leonard, the home studio master, a voice actor with over 30 years experience in broadcasting and recording, and a no-holds-barred myth-busting attitude for teaching you how easy it is. Together, to bring you all the latest technology. Today's voiceover superstars. and leading the discussion on how to make the most of your voiceover business. This is VoiceOver Body Shop.
VoiceOver Body Shop is brought to you by VoiceOverEssentials.com, home of Harlan Hogan's signature products. Source Elements, remote connections made even easier. VO2GoGo.com, everything you need to be a successful voiceover artist. J. Michael Collins Demos, award-winning demo production. VoiceActorWebsites.com, where your voiceover website won't be a pain in the butt. And VoiceOver Extra, your daily resource for VO success.
And now, live from their super secret multimedia studio in Sherman Oaks, California, here are George Whittam and Dan Leonard.
Good evening. I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver
Body Shop.
or VO BS.
Wow, listen to that audience.
Boy,
A huge
it's
crowd.
Voluminous audience. Yes.
Yes.
Well, we're back.
Yeah.
After a week off, although it's hardly a week
Didn't feel
off.
like a week off, that's
Yeah,
for sure.
I know. We'll talk about that in a second. But Durin Gleeves is our guest tonight. A little bit later on, we're going to talk about Adobe Audition.
Yep.
And he's got all the answers. We're going to be spelunking through Adobe Audition. Wow, look at this thing here.
You've heard us talk about it a lot on the show, but if there's questions about some of the features that maybe we haven't talked about before, some of the things you may not have heard of, this is one you guys should be watching because you're going to learn a lot of little things along the way.
Absolutely. All right, why were we not here last week? Well, if you were, paying attention, you would know that George and I went to Uncle Roy's barbecue in Bloomington, New Jersey.
Yes, we did.
Along with a lot of other things. Now, I had quite the odyssey. I know you were in New York and you were in Philadelphia.
Version, not quite as odious.
No, I had to go to a lot of places. So let me explain here what happened. If you just roll that. George and I flew from California to New Jersey, and then we got off the plane, got a lift, went over to Uncle Roy's, and there was a great party there.
We had a great party.
We'll show you some music from that. Then I had to go back to Buffalo. So a friend of mine and I drove back to Buffalo, but that wasn't the end of it. Then I had to go to Rochester for a meetup group, which was great. Then I had to drive back to Buffalo the next, that night.
Yeah.
The next day on Thursday, had to drive to Toronto to see our good friend Pat Sweeney, who's doing very well.
Oh, good.
And then came back, saw some cousins and friends, and flew back to California. And that was...
That was your version?
If you don't include the 2,500 miles there, the 2,500 miles back, and the extra 1,000 miles I had to drive through Pennsylvania and New York and Ontario.
Oh, man.
And crossing the border. And, of course, when we were over Iowa was when I remembered that I did not bring my passport.
Oh.
So...
That was FedExed to you, I'm
It was
assuming?
FedExed to my cousins in Buffalo,
Thanks
and it
to,
was waiting for me when
Marcy.
I arrived. So
Yeah.
that was great. So it was quite the odyssey. And there's a lot of different stories that go on in each one of the different parts of that.
You'll have
But,
to follow him on Facebook if you want to hear more.
yeah,
I'm sure.
there's more. And you went to the opera.
Well, yeah, kind of.
Okay.
I didn't get to see a performance, but I did see I got a backstage tour from my good old Virginia Tech colleague Danielle Talamantes, who's singing the role of Frasquita in Carmen for the fourth year in a row at the Met, which is pretty exciting. We got a look backstage, which was really cool. Did you know that underneath the stage of the Met, they have an entire another room that's exactly the same size as the stage?
Why wouldn't
So they can rehearse, lay everything out, and then they have a thing that pops actors up out of the...
Right.
Wow.
It's the Met.
It is an amazing place. And then I got to meet with another Virginia Tech grad who's an audio engineer at WNYC Radio. She does stuff for Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
That was really cool. So it was a real fun time. Then I took a train down to Philly, saw a client in Philadelphia, then a train out to Westchester, spent the rest of the week with my family. My birthday was there on Thursday.
Happy birthday once again.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. And then spent some time with my brother's show. My brother is a spot operator for the Wheatsall Avita.
Oh.
It was an off.
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
Yes,
Okay.
off Broadway of Avita.
It could have been on Broadway in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and then we had a great big party, and I saw Longwood Gardens, it was a beautiful visit, and I'm glad to be back, but I'm a bit tired.
Yeah.
Because I got up at 12:30 a.m. Pacific time this morning to get here. So
Yeah. Well, I got back on Friday. I slept all weekend.
good.
You know, I mean, you lose 3. I mean, we gain 3 hours coming
Yeah.
back, but it's like,
Burn candles both ends. That's what I'm doing right now.
Absolutely.
But coffee, ready to go, gang. Let's do this.
We're doing all right.
Boom.
Well,
Drop the
anyway,
coffee.
Uncle Roy's party.
Yes,
That was a great party.
it was.
We've been to a couple of those, and that one was the best one I've seen.
especially
so far.
since we were both there at the same time.
Well, that helps.
Because that's the first one I think we were both at together.
Yeah. So, but just a little example of some of the music that was there, in case you missed the live
Yeah,
broadcast.
there is
of that.
live streams that you can catch online if you dig around. But here's a
So
clip.
it's on our Facebook page. But
This one is that's Uncle Roy's nephew's name right now. Is it Greg? Sorry, forgetting your name. Good musician, really good. Just a lot of professional musicians.
yeah. So
It was a lot of fun.
yeah, we had a great time. All sorts of friends. Saw Paul Strickwitter there.
Yeah.
Who's looking and sounding much better, and we sang a song to Uncle Roy, and
Yes, that was really cute.
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So we had a great time. We missed you all last week, but we were having our own time. But we got a great bunch of shows coming up through November, and also we got to remind people we've got a big live concert coming up here
We
on
do.
VoiceOver Body Shop on November 5th. And if you're here in LA and you want to come down to the VoiceOver Body Shop or next to it, we're going to have a backyard concert with Solly Canto, our good friends Brian and Rosie Amador and their daughter Elisa, and they're fabulous.
Yeah.
And it'll be a backyard concert. $20. You go to our Facebook page, and there's a link there for brown paper tickets, I think it's called. And
Okay, cool.
You can, for $20, it's a suggested donation.
Yeah.
Extra proceeds will go to Puerto Rican hurricane relief.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So that'll be great. All right. Well, that's a lot of news.
Yes,
but,
it is.
But right now it's time for
VoiceOver Body Shop presents the VOBS. Voice Over Extra News. All the information you need for a successful voiceover career.
All righty. VoiceOver Extra News for October 22nd. Organize your marketing email lists. Where do you keep the records of your voiceover prospects and clients? There's a lot of client relation management software tools for this, but a no-cost option that many working pros use is simply to create spreadsheet lists. Michael Langzer is one of those voiceover pros who reports success with creating lists that he creates for many uses. But there's an early caution. Simply creating a spreadsheet of people's names and email addresses leaves a lot to be desired.
In an article coming tomorrow to VoiceOver Extra, Michael details how to create and use those lists efficiently and effectively. First, he says, decide what info to store in each list and how. Michael suggests storing names in 2 separate fields, one for first name and one for last name. Don't combine these in just one box. This way, in an email promo, you can personally address your prospects just by first name. Of course, also create a separate field for company name.
And Michael creates separate lists for prospects and actual clients. You'll likely want to address each group differently in your promotions, and you might want to send promotions to each different frequencies. All that is pretty simple. So now let's jazz it up with tags and segments, my favorite stuff. Play with your spreadsheet tool to see how to use them. Basically, these tools allow you to further subdivide your lists into useful groups.
Mm-hmm. For instance, you might subdivide your prospects and clients by type of company or work they do, such as video production company, animation studio, e-learning developer, and so on. You can fill in more details about this in the article at voiceoverextra.com, where you'll also see links to 2 earlier articles from Michael that tells us more about how to set up a CRM system and how to use these lists effectively in social media.
All this and many hundreds more how-to articles await you now at voiceoverextra.com, your daily resource for voiceover success. All righty.
Do you use a CRM thing, like any formal CRM
I use
tools?
QuickBooks, and
Yeah.
I take notes, and I keep track. I'm terrible with this stuff. Technology, I know technology, audio, fabulous. Get me into spreadsheets, and I'm like, Han, can you help me with this? That sort of thing.
I through a client lead, actually, one of my voiceover clients told me about a CRM system that he made use of, and now I've been using for over a year. It's called VCITA, VCITA. I like it because it integrates a few functions. One, I can charge for a service, and two, they can book the service, and it's all done in one flow. So they pay, then get access to the calendar, and then book the service. It works reasonably well. I mean, if any of you guys have booked any of my services at georgethetech.com in the last year, you've probably used it. How is it relevant to voice actors? Some voice actors, I think, have had success of scheduling sessions that way.
Right.
I think it depends on the type of client you're doing.
Right.
But it's also a CRM, and it has a newsletter function.
Right.
And I used that exact tags thing he was talking about in the article to create a list of people who are in the region where I'm going.
Right.
So I made a tags list for New York and Pennsylvania, sent out an email blast that only went to 30 or 35 people. But the beauty of that is it's targeted,
Right.
and it doesn't feel like spam, you know?
Yeah. Well, next week, Jonathan Tilley is going to be with us. We're going to have an interview with him, and he's an expert in this stuff inside out, backwards, and upside down.
Oh, geez, yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah, totally.
That'll be totally different.
Yeah, yeah.
All righty. Well, we've got Durin Gleeves coming up in just a little bit. We've got some of your questions and some tech stuff coming right up after these incredibly important messages.
This is the Latin lover narrator from Jane the Virgin, Anthony Mendez, and you're enjoying Dan and George on VoiceOver Body Shop.
How are you thinking about your voiceover career? Are you frustrated with your lack of success, wishing you had more auditions and bookings, making more money? We all have thoughts like, I'm not good enough to be doing this professionally. I'm just faking it. I need to join the union as soon as I can. I'm too old to get booked. I can't get started until everything is perfect. I hate auditioning because I never book anything. Does that sound familiar? If you could only change your mindset to get rid of these ridiculous rules. Well, Via to Go-Go's David H. Lawrence XVII has just what you need. He's completed a 21-day journey with nearly 100 voiceover and on-camera voice talent, just like you, called Believe 2018. And he recorded every single session, meaning you can take this journey now at the pace you want and change things for the better. Get the success you deserve by destroying your limiting beliefs and replacing them with powerful, productive, enabling beliefs. And do so on your schedule. Here's the link. Go to get the 25 hours of video and audio, the daily chat logs, and more, and begin your own journey. The link is vo2gogo.com/believe. That's vo2gogo.com/believe. It's ridiculously cheap, and it's ridiculously effective. Once again, vo2gogo.com/believe.
As a voice talent, you have to have a website. But what a hassle getting someone to do it for you. And when they finally do, they break or don't look right on mobile devices. They're not built for marketing and SEO. They're expensive. You have limited or no control. And it takes forever to get one built and go live. So what's the best way to get you online in no time? Go to voiceactorwebsites.com. Like our name implies, voiceactorwebsites.com just does websites for voice actors. We believe in creating fast, mobile-friendly, responsive, highly functional designs that are easy to read and easy to use. You have full control. No need to hire someone every time you want to make a change. And our upfront pricing means you know exactly what your costs are ahead of time. You can get your voiceover website going for as little as $700. So if you want your voice actor website without the hassle of complexity and dealing with too many options, go to voiceactorwebsites.com, where your VO website shouldn't be a pain in the you-know-what.
Alrighty, we're back here on VoiceOver Body Shop. You know, we missed working with, we both had appointments while we were there. I got a weird call last Thursday. Somebody said, I've got a problem with my mic. It was referred to me by somebody. And I'm like, where are you? She goes, Brooklyn. And I'm like, you're in luck. I will be in Brooklyn next Monday.
Somewhere in Brooklyn.
And I was. and was able to see a client. And
Awesome.
you were able to see clients in Philadelphia?
Yeah. What train were you off of? Was it the G train?
Oh,
or the
no.
L?
It was it was said D train, but somehow I ended up on the B train. And the B train stopped at Eastern Parkway because there was a murder or something farther down the Hey, you don't get off the train. You're going all the way to Flatbush.
Oh, okay. Might have been an express or something.
Right. It was nuts. And I ended up walking a whole lot of way.
I used a patchwork cross quilt of MTA trains and Ubers and stuff to get around to where I had to go.
But it is a great transportation system. You don't need a car in New York.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Besides, other guys have cars. You can just hey, pick me up here, take me there. It's
Depending on where you are in town, the lifts are key to getting around sometimes.
Absolutely. But we were doing our job, and our job is to take care of your home voiceover studios.
Yes, it is.
That's what we do. And
it is.
you can email us, or you can go to our websites to really see what it is we do. And if you want to work with George, who knows more about home voiceover studios than almost anybody, go to
George Whittam.
That's your name.
Oh, GeorgeTheTech.com. GeorgeTheTech.com is my home on the web with menus of services I offer you. You can do things on demand. You can schedule. Or you can do self-service things where you send me the files and I send them back, such as my racks and stacks. I could do audition racks for you. Or you can just send in sound for a sound check to make sure your audio is sounding the way it should. And Dan does something kind of like that over at
homevoiceoverstudio.com.
Yes, he does.
I do. And I've got my specimen collection cup there.
Mm-hmm.
Click on that. Put your audio in there as an MP3. There's instructions on how to do it.
Follow the instructions
to the T.
Please. We always ask.
Right. And then I will analyze it for you. And generally, if you listen to some audio, within 5 seconds, sometimes less, you and I know exactly what's going on. And if it sounds right, it is right. So, that's what we do. And for $25, you can get me to analyze your audio. If you need more help than that, we can set that up as well. And you do consults. And we do stuff on site if you're here in LA or in Philadelphia.
If
or
we happen to be in your
New City. Just try and find us.
Get on our newsletter list so you know what's going on.
All righty. Well, we got a couple of questions this week. Thank goodness.
Yay. We love questions. It gives us something to talk about.
I know. Well, we always have plenty to talk about. But now, this is an interesting one. This one is from Jack in Fresno, California, the home of raisins. I wonder if they call the baseball team the Raisins there. I don't know. I'll have to ask. Anyway, how do you break down the recorded stuff to an MP3 to send out?
Okay.
All right. Well, a number of things missing from this question. Like, what software are you using?
Right.
Who are you sending it to? What are you recording?
Right.
That sort of thing. But it's pretty simple.
Well, since we happen to be talking about Audition tonight,
yeah,
let's talk about it in the context of
Audition.
All right. So you record your audio, and we recommend waveform view because that's the simplest to use for most people. When you're finished editing the audio and you have it the way you like, at that point you do save as, or you can export selection, right?
Right.
There's
Export
both of those
selection
functions.
Or edit it down to the entire file to what you want.
Right. If it's export selection, you can highlight a piece of audio and export only that.
Right.
Some people like to work that way. At that point, when you're doing the save as, then you'll be prompted what format you're going to be save it to.
Right.
And it's going to be almost always WAV or MP3, right? I mean, how often have you been asked for anything other than one of those two?
At 1% of the time an AIFF.
Okay. Yeah.
But never a FLAC, never an OGG Vorbis.
Right.
They give you all of these choices.
Right. There's a lot of options. But look for MP3. And then make sure your settings for the MP3 are set correctly. Make sure you have it to the right bit rate, which is usually 128,
128.
right? If we're doing mono audio. Right. And then at that point, you're able to save out to an MP3.
And save it to where you know you'll find it.
Yeah, that's another thing. Make sure you tell it what folder to put it in. Otherwise, it's going to put it where Adobe wants to put it, which isn't necessarily where you want it.
Right.
It might be buried in a subfolder somewhere. So make sure you've chosen the location. That's really all there is to it. So if you happen to be watching the show live tonight, Jack, we know a lot of Jacks. We're assuming it's not one of the two that we know that are involved with the show.
Well, it's not the Jack we know, it's the Jack in Fresno. Just up the road.
But if you're watching, Jack, put in the chat room what software you're using. Maybe before the end of the show, we can give you more direct answer based on what you actually use.
Although usually it's simply file, save as, and that usually does it.
Almost any software has a similar function. So.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Here's a slightly longer question. Seems to be more of an editorial than anything else.
All right, let's see where we go with this one.
It's from Eric from Ireland.
Okay.
From the Emerald Isle. He says, "Hi, lads. Thought I would send a quick email as I have heard you recently getting very excited about the new Mixer Face mixer. But has anybody ever considered the Zoom H5 or H6? Great machine that has a built-in audio interface allowing you to connect to a laptop or iPad. So in theory, you could use it with something like Twisted Wave on an iPad when you're on the move and to record and edit. Apparently, the new updated preamps on the Zoom H5 and 6 have made huge improvements over the older sibling, the H4, which I've seen plenty of times. Plus, the H6 and H5 are now very reasonable to purchase. Not that they weren't before. I've recently bought the H6, which has plenty of extra XLR jack inputs for extra input sources that can be recorded as separately as tracks on the unit at the same time. Great for podcasting, and I've seen it done for that. I think this is maybe a great option for voiceovers on the move, allowing you to travel lightly by just bringing your powered microphone, iPad, and Zoom unit, and leads to connect, of course. Just wondering if any of your viewers use or have used this setup and what their comments are on it. Thanks, lads. Enjoy the banter every week, and you're getting lots of it this week.
Have you played with any of the Zoom stuff yet?
I work on podcasts with people, and a
they're
few
very popular. In that world.
Because you can record individual tracks with it,
Yep.
which allows you to play games with so everybody's
You can mix and post.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like sync it up, do that kind of stuff. But the Zooms, I mean, as an option, it certainly could work.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to features versus function sometimes. So, like, Zooms are notorious. Well, not notorious. That's not fair to say, but they're known for having a lot of features baked into a very,
tiny
compact
little
device.
package. Yeah.
Right. So, and they can do a lot. Well, the more something can do, the more chances that you may have trouble getting it to do what you want it to do. So sometimes we like to err on products that are simpler, that do fewer things, but do those things really, really well. And that's sort of, to me, the case of Mixer Face versus Zoom. The Mixer Face has no menu system, you don't have to install drivers. You don't have to dig through pages of documents.
Just scroll through it. Yeah.
It's so simple. Like, all the controls to operate it are right on the top or a couple switches on the front. I mean, it's very simple to set up and use. And that's why, for my purposes, I would like the Mixer Face more. But the Zoom obviously can do things the Mixer Face can't. It's got microphones built in. The H5 and the H6 have interchangeable onboard mics. They have like an Omni mic, a stereo, a shotgun mic. I mean, they're really cool for what they do. One thing that I got to find out from Mixer Face, I believe it can do this for an extra roughly $100 option. You can upgrade it to an micro SD card, and now your Mixer Face is also a recorder.
Yeah.
The question I have, which I believe is yes, but we'll find out, is that the Mixer Face can record to that little micro SD card. At the same time, it's an interface on USB.
Right.
So it'll be recording to your computer and recording internally simultaneously.
So a backup.
I don't believe the Zooms can do that.
Ah.
It doesn't mean they won't someday. Maybe that's something they can upgrade or firmware update. I don't know. But it's not something right now that you can do with the Zoom. The sound devices MixPre 3, I believe it is one that can do that. A little bit more money, roughly twice as much, But if you're looking for that kind of a feature, that might be more useful. But yes, if you have a Zoom H5 or an H6, should you go buy a mixer face? You probably don't need it. If you already have the Zoom mastered, you know how to operate it, you get it, and it does what it wanted to do, you're probably fine. We haven't had an opportunity yet to shoot out the mic preamps to see, whether
everything
the Zoom,
sounds the same.
Nowadays, the gear is getting so good that it's rare you find a real stinker, especially at that price point. Because the Zoom, I think, it starts around $300. The mixer face is $300. And that price point, the preamps are really good nowadays. So you should be able to get a good result either way.
Right. I wonder if Durin has some ideas about that as well.
He might have some input about that.
We're going to ask him about that in just a little bit. So hopefully that answers your question. And again, if you have any technical questions for us, best way if you want to get it on the show is to write to us at theguys@vobs.tv. And we will answer that question if we deem it appropriate to answer. But they're all questions are good questions. And that was a good question, and that was an interesting response to. There's just so much stuff out there.
The thing is, there's so many options these days, right? So I'm always like, yes, but, or I need more information. I can't give you good answers without more information, but hopefully that clears up a little bit.
All right. Enough of our banter. Durin Gleeves will be joining us from Adobe Audition. We've been waiting for this for a long time, so he'll be right with us in just a couple of minutes after these incredibly important announcements, so stay right where you are.
Hi, this is Bob Bergen, and the Porky Pig, and you're loving the voiceover body shop, folks.
Everybody, before we get to Durin here, I do need to put a spot in here for our good friends at Source Elements. When I say friends, I really mean it. I ran into Robert Marshall of Source Elements just over last week in New York City, in fact. Great people with a really incredible product, that's Source Connect. And you really want to get your hands on a demo of Source Connect if you haven't already. So you're ready to go if a client comes to you or your agent tells you you need to be Source Connect ready. If you have a demo of Source Connect and you've got it set up and you have it working, you're Source Connect ready. And when that time comes, when a job comes, you can either buy it outright and put it on an iLock USB key. You can also subscribe and pay a monthly fee to use Source Connect. And that's Source Connect Standard we're talking about. They also have Pro for studios and Source Connect Now, which is a free web-based version that for now is not compatible with the standard version. The ones that the studios, the pros are using, the studios around the world, is Source Connect Standard or Pro, and that's what I recommend you guys give a shot. So go over to source-elements.com. You can get a 15-day free trial, get that thing under your fingertips, learn how to use it so you're comfortable, so that first time you're asked to use it, you won't be caught with your pants down. Be ready. We'll be right back in just a minute with Durin Gleeves from Adobe Audition.
Are you confused about how to set up and maintain a professional quality voiceover studio? No wonder. The information out there is mostly mythology. This is the best microphone to use. You have to have a preamp. You need a soundproof booth. This software is the best. Your audio must be broadcast quality. Consult with someone who knows the truth. Someone who's been there, in the trenches, doing voiceover for over 30 years. Someone with unparalleled experience with voiceover studios, who's worked with hundreds of voice actors and designed hundreds of personal studios. He knows how to teach and cares about your success. In one of the harshest environments known to voiceover, your home. Dan Leonard, the Home Studio Master. Separate myth from fact and get a handle on your personal voiceover studio. Contact the Home Studio Master at homevoiceoverstudio.com.
All right, let's introduce our guest. Durin Gleeves is a product manager for audio at Adobe, defining new workflows and directions for Adobe Audition, Premiere Pro, and other tools. He'll share the gospel of great sound, sharing tips and stories for voice actors and artists using Adobe Audition. All right, that's a grand introduction. Durin Gleeves, welcome to VoiceOver Body Shop.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, no, I have to live up to that.
Yeah,
Thanks
really.
a lot.
Boy, now of course his audio sounds perfect.
He does.
You
He's
know,
got it set up nicely over there.
We get people on Zoom and they're talking through their laptops. No, he's at, what is that, a U87 there? And
No, this is a Samson CO3.
oh, come on!
I was trying to debate between that and 8. No, I'm really hard on microphones, so I don't get budget to buy expensive ones anymore.
Well, you know what? It sounds great. You
Yeah,
know,
it does.
Good.
It
Good,
does.
a good mic in the right spot. And are you in an actual studio space? Because it sounds acoustically pretty dead in there.
Nope. This is just my little bedroom office, dialing in from home. So what you see behind me is not fancy gear. It's an old 70s Sansui 6060. And
Sansui, all right.
Ooh, there's a name you don't hear often, except on old stereos and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background, and how did you end up at Adobe, which is a big, important company?
they've gotten pretty big. Yeah, before, when I was a lot younger, much younger now that I do the math, I spent a lot of time. I was in college. I dabbled with college radio a little bit. I always enjoyed CB radio when I was a kid, wiring an old CB radio I found in the garage, wiring it up directly to the battery of my parents' Nova. Somehow I survived that. I didn't electrocute myself.
We're all cut from the same cloth,
Yeah.
it sounds like.
And and then I got interested in audio production, mainly for what was going to end up being large scale art projects, some of which may have contained massive amounts of fire and explosions on purpose.
Awesome.
But didn't find a lot of, wasn't going to be a musician. I was never that good, and I never really wanted to practice that much.
Another commonality.
No, like I'm looking into a mirror here. Then got involved. I was always a bit of a hacker, so I got involved in the tech industry pretty early during the couple waves back in the mid '90s, and eventually an opportunity came where I could combine the two: my love of tech and hacking and tinkering and software, and my love of playing with sound and making people sound funny and making them sound great. And that was over 14 years ago. I've been there ever since.
Wow, and it's they run everything. I mean, we use Audition, but Premiere. I learned how to edit video on Premiere, and like 18 years ago.
Yeah,
I was started using Premiere, and of course Photoshop, and of course something in Adobe Audition I tend to refer to as the Photoshop for audio.
the Spectral View Editor.
Yes, we'll talk about the Spectral View Editor, which
Absolutely.
is great feature. I think one of the things that I really liked about it. So tell us a little bit about the history of Audition and where it came from and how it developed into what it is today.
Yeah, well, great timing. We just ended the Summer of Sound celebration, kind of really reminiscing about over 25 years now of Audition and Cool Edit before that. So originally back in the early 90s, a Microsoft, I don't even know if he was a developer at the time. He may have still been putting boxes of Windows 3.0 into shrink wrap. But he worked at Microsoft, David Johnston, and in his free time, he developed software, and he developed Cool Edit, the original Cool Edit. And after a couple of years they started the company Central.
Uh-oh.
Did I have something to do with that?
You may have.
Internet connection is
Connection's
unstable.
Message my internet.
Just a
connection
second.
is
Yeah, we
unstable.
had a drop out there for about 10 seconds. Just back it up one complete thought if you can.
Sure. Wherever I was at, David Johnston was the original
Yes.
developer. And they started Centrillium, which really kind of put Cool Edit out there. It coincided well with the switch, the migration of North American radio stations from the old tapes and cartridges into a digital workflows. So they were starting to actually trust computers to record, to do some basic editing, to get things up onto the playback systems. And Cool Edit was the application of choice. It was fast. It was cheap. It worked really well. It had a lot of things that other applications didn't at the time. And so they really embraced that. And we were really popular with radio stations to this day. Some of those older versions of Audition, and even in some stations, Cool Edit is still our biggest competition in those environments.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably because Windows for whatever reason is what is often or most often used in radio production facilities, right? So
yeah,
any system that runs on Windows was probably what's going to be used most often. But I hear that a lot when I work with a new voice actor, but who's not new to the business. If there's any touch of radio in their voice, almost always they're going to be using Cool Edit or Adobe 1.5, Audition 1.5 or 3.0.
Yeah, which is great. I'm thrilled that the things we wrote 10, 15 years ago are still running so well today.
They are.
For the most part.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Although it's still best to, I would think, to update to the latest version of something, even though they're a bit more complex, but more features, more stable engine, faster running, that sort of thing.
Support, too.
Yeah, and of course, support.
If you're more current, you're going to be able to get support.
Right.
And how far back do you guys support? It has to be a Creative Cloud version to get support?
Anymore, yeah. So when Adobe shifted to the Creative Cloud model, we had legacy support, I think up to 5 years for the CS6, CS5.5 era. After that, everything going forward, because as part of CC, you always have access to the latest version. So we tend to support not as far back, although we'll certainly do what we can if it's mission critical that it stay on an older version.
Yeah.
All right.
When were you going to ask about the Sound Studio? No, I'm sorry, not Sound. What was the older version? That was what was the Mac version specifically?
There was a Sound Booth. Sound Booth was the one I used.
Yeah. How did that come and merge together?
Well, so Adobe acquired Centrillium back in 2003.
Right.
We put a couple versions out, but up to that point, Audition was always Windows only. There was never a Mac version. And Adobe decided we were going to start creating these things we were going to call the Creative Suites. And one of the requirements to be part of Creative Suite was it had to be cross-platform. It had to be Mac and Windows. We had some engineers, some Mac engineers, take a look at the Windows only code. 15 years of Windows only code. They laughed at us when we said our timeline was about 12 months to do a port. So what we did was we created Sound Booth, as sort of a temporary fill the gap as an audio application that could be cross-platform. It was built on top of the Premiere Pro engine, so it was easy to build on top of, but it had some limitations. Premiere was frame-centric instead of sample-based. Some good, some bad, but the goal was really to make something that was simple, that was focused on video editors, and what was a very big part of our membership at the time, or our user base at the time, which was Flash developers, something they could use to build sound effects, to do recording, to clean up voiceovers and narration. It had some really cool features in there that we don't even have in Audition today. But ultimately, we finished the porting Audition. We did a ground-up rewrite of the entire application, kept all the original DSP, of course, but the foundational code was all modernized, built for modern workstations, exactly the same on Mac and Windows with a few minor format exceptions. And eventually Audition replaced Sound Booth as the audio application of choice in the Creative Suites and now in Creative Cloud.
Yeah. Now when I first started using it, and when I generally recommend it to people, it's because Sound Booth and then Audition really is designed for creating audio tracks for video. That's the workflow that it has. And other software primarily made for making music with all the multi-tracking. You can do that with Adobe Audition, but it's really designed for, as you said, layering sound effects, music with voice specifically, which is why I like it for voiceover. It's got a workflow that works for voiceover, whereas something like Pro Tools or Reaper or some of these other Logic Pro. I forget. I don't even use them.
Yeah.
They're really designed for multi-tracking music.
Yeah, and production, composing, that
Right,
kind of
that sort of
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you know, we get into little debates about what's the best DAW, what's the best thing with our user base, I should say. But so it comes down to tools that do the jobs we need quickly. And I like that Audition has sort of like its two-personality way of operating. You can stay in waveform view and happily stay there and not delve into the multi-track world at all if you don't need to. But it's there when that day comes where you actually need it. You know, I love that about that.
Yeah. So what is it about Adobe Audition that can help the average non-technically minded voice actor?
Well, we really try and bridge, you know, Audition is an incredibly deep application. And, you know, if you start adding features, you start adding effects and some of these, you open these effect interfaces and you might see all these knobs and buttons and obscure parameter names. And for the geeks among us, we love that stuff. We love being able to, you know, I have so much control. But at the same time, that can be really off-putting to somebody whose job is to maybe create audio, but their job is not to be an audio pro, and not to their audio is just what they deliver or what they're creating in pursuit of something else, some other goal. And so they're not necessarily, there's a user who's not necessarily as excited by all the parameters and all the depth of some of these effects. And so we've really tried to tuck as much as we can into, you know, this is the advanced parameters. If you probably aren't going to need these, stick to everything that's up here. And more you're seeing a lot of our new effects are coming out that are much more simplified user interfaces. And we don't want to just create a black box where you don't have any clue what's going on and you don't have any control over what comes out. But we want to make it simple enough so that you get good results up front with the defaults. And then if you want to get a little creative or spend some time, you can continue to tweak it. But if we can get you 85% of the way there without having to lift a finger, then you get to decide, is it worth your time and effort to do the work to get the other 15% to get perfection.
What are your favorite features? I mean, this thing is like, you start going through the menus and it's like, what does that do? Fortunately, there's a lot of presets in it, which are fun to work with and start and get an idea how things work. But what are your favorite features that are built into Audition?
My favorite feature in not just Audition, but I think anything that we've got at Adobe here is it's actually one of the few music-related features we have in Audition, which is called Remix. And it's as close to black magic as anything I've ever seen. It's a machine learning-based feature, so it's trained on music, and it's really just able to go in. It analyzes any song something you've licensed off a stock music site, your buddy's garage rock band recording, or, you know, if you get a license or you rip something from a CD, doesn't matter. It looks at any piece of music. It does a bunch of analyses, 8 or 9 analyses. I can bore you with the geekery behind it, but essentially it looks at each beat 9 different ways, comes up with this mesh, this web of how well every beat can fade and crossfade and blend into every other beat in the song, such that you can then come and say, you know, this song was 4.5 minutes long, but my advertisement spot or my presentation is only 90 seconds. And I just need a 90-second version that doesn't just cut off arbitrarily, or that I don't have to go and splice and cut and crossfade and try and do it all myself. It does one analysis, takes a couple seconds, and then all these infinite variations are instantaneous. And it does such a good job that it's one of those things. I don't want to put people out of a job, you know, people who can go bill 6 hours or 8 hours because they did a remix for somebody for a commercial spot. But it's so good that you can probably get away with continuing to bill 6 hours and only take 45 seconds to
I like that one.
You know what? That's the thing when you're innovating with new product, new features, things that, you know, are really, you know, on the borderline of taking quote unquote jobs, right? You know, it's like whenever we do, electric big rigs that self-drive someday and
Right.
take away truck. There's progress. That's something about progress.
Right.
But these tools, when used by people that actually know how to make them do their job efficiently and well, ends up being good for everybody, because you're not really taking away a job. You're making someone's job more efficient and allow them to produce more and more quickly, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's certainly what a lot of, so Adobe's artificial intelligence and machine learning initiative is called Adobe Sensei. And really the goal is not to go and replace everybody's job or make robots that make all of our content for us, but just to simplify the mundane, repetitive tasks that are prone to fatigue. One of the features that we have is auto-correcting loudness. And, if it's just a couple clips or a piece of audio here, a couple pieces of VO, that's no big deal. But if you've got a timeline that has 70 clips, and they've all come from different microphones or different speakers, and some are nice and loud and some are really quiet and somebody's moving around, being able to just select them all and say, make these all the same relative to each other, and then I can go through and make any creative decisions up and down that I want, but I don't have to go through and then an hour later realize I was just getting louder and louder and louder and louder, and now I got to start over. It's insane. So things like that, where it's really tuned to, let me help you do the terrible part of this job, and then you get to just focus on the awesome part of the job, is really our focus for what we're doing around that.
Yeah. Creativity is number one with voice actors, because we're trying to be busy performing. If you're just joining us, our guest is Durin Gleeves, who is a product manager at Adobe, and he works on Adobe Audition, and he's going to explain some of it to us. So if you've got questions about Adobe Audition, and who doesn't, throw them in the chat room right now, in Facebook or in our chat room. And Jack Daniel, who is suffering a little bit with something, he's got a bug, but he's at home. He's not with us tonight, but he's still online.
He is watching.
And he is watching, and he is monitoring the chat room. He will get that question to us, and we will get that on. We'd love to get a demonstration of some of the features that it has that people really need for voice acting and for all the other recording applications that there are there. So one question I have is, how do you find all these features? I mean, come on. It's just menu after menu and then preset after preset. And I guess it's just a matter of playing with it.
Well, that a little bit, yeah. I mean, there's a couple different avenues. Yeah, there's so much that you certainly couldn't. No one expects you to just. Nobody knows everything that's in the app. Case in point, I've been in this application probably more than most people in the world, and just about a year and a half ago, I decided we needed a feature to be able to nudge clips with the keyboard. Just a little command, nudge it left, nudge it right, just a couple samples, milliseconds. And so I wrote up a feature request. We got it into the backlog. I was looking up to figure out what keyboard shortcuts were available, and realized that the feature had been there for about 4 years.
I know, I've used it.
That's great.
It happens. I can share my screen if you would
Please.
like.
Show us how that works.
It worked in rehearsal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
See
we
what
go.
happens here.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you, the first thing to know is the biggest secret to Audition is right-click everywhere. Right-click where you think you want to be able to do something. If there's something I want to be able to do here in the waveform view, right-clicking in there usually gives me most of the commands that I can do in that location with whatever that is. If it's a selection, I can save the selection. If there's no selection, I can't save the selection. So it kind of gives you, wherever you happen to be. If it's something file-based, you can right-click on the file you want to do something. If it's how do I make the playhead do something different, there's the options. You right-click everywhere.
That's called the contextual menu, I think they call that. I might be wrong.
Right-click menu, context menu. On Mac, it can be Control-click.
Control-click on Mac, right.
Yep,
right.
if you don't have you don't do what's right and proper and set up that.
Yeah, the purest Apple users will never have a right click. No. How dare you?
I can't imagine not having that. So that's number one. If you're looking for something else, you can go into the keyboard shortcuts, and this not only gives you kind of a nice look at what your keyboard is doing at the time, but you can search for commands here. So if I wanted to know what I can do to, say, ripple delete, I can start typing ripple, which is maybe in that you're not looking for ripple delete, but if you know what that is, you can search for it. And not only shows you the different commands that we can do with the, different types of ripple deletions, but you can customize your own shortcuts for them too. So if this is something I do all the time, I want to ripple delete a gap in a selected track over in multi-track, but there's no default shortcut for it. So I can click in here and make one. I could say that's going to be 5, or I can just grab 5 and drag it down onto that, or I can drag the command and drag it to the key I want. So you can actually customize your keyboard shortcuts really easily here.
Oh, we're getting lots of oohs and ahs in the studio right now. We didn't know that.
There's
You
a
could
lot
just
of Adobe
drag
lovers.
that stuff in there. I mean, I love being able to customize it because, I mean, there's 2 commands I use all the time when I'm editing. One of them is silence, and the other is auto heal. And I just, I change it S and A.
Yeah, I love that they don't have to necessarily be control the command. It can be just a single keystroke as long as it's not conflicting with something else, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then, you can override. You can even choose, if you want to override something that's already in use, no problem. If you don't use, one of the toggle modes, get rid of that shortcut. The only thing that's held sacred, I think, is spacebar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank goodness.
And then one more way to really quickly find things, at least on Mac, Windows doesn't support this, but this is actually built into the OS, is you can come up to help and search. And here you can type silence, and it'll show you not only all the items, but where they are in the menus too as you click around.
Okay, I'm always trying to convince Windows users why there are certain things that I like about Mac, and this is a key feature. Whenever I sit down at a Windows machine, I look for that feature instinctively, and it's not there, and I'm like, I love that. That ability
that's one of the freebies that Apple gives us.
It's very helpful
as developers.
Yeah.
Now, one of the features that I love, which was one of the reasons that I fell in love with Sound Booth when it first came out, and of course Audition had it as well, but you could only do one at a time, and that's the spectrograph, which is something that makes Audition incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Explain to us exactly what it is. I mean, when people ask me, what are all those colors, I generally define it as a graphic representation of the relative volume of individual frequencies. Does that about do it?
That's pretty good. I've heard Predator View.
Predator View.
Yeah, Predator View.
Heat Seeker View. Yes.
Yeah. Essentially what this is, so when you have an audio recording like this is the waveform, and it really just shows you changes in air pressure, amplitude over time. So it goes up, it goes down, and that's great because you can see when things kind of happen, but you don't see any of the information that's happening within this passage right here. What Spectral Frequency View does is it lets you, and I'll reduce the resolution here a little bit, it lets you see how much energy exists at different frequency bands during that same period. So where a sound may be somebody speaking and it shows up just fine here as a waveform, as a blurb or a blob or a bubble, down here you can actually see where it's the fundamental frequency of somebody's voice and all the harmonics up and down, as well as the quality behind. You can see in this recording there's a lot of kind of voice here, lots of harmonics, it goes up and down and curves, but over here there's not much of that, but there's still this kind of
background noise.
Yeah, that's all background noise, it's all reverb, so you can actually start to see it. And there's something else at the top here. You can start to see anomalies and problems. Like, I don't know if it shows up over screencast, but there's this vertical line right at 8,000 hertz. And that indicates that there's some sort of interference, maybe a electrical interference or a
high buzz.
Something. And so you can actually come in and select, and then you can start to work in this view as if you were like working on it in Photoshop. In fact, we find that a lot of people who come from a visual background, graphic designers, Photoshop, photo editors, they'll come in and they may not understand waveform view at all, but give them the lasso tool and a couple seconds here in the spectral, and all of a sudden they've got it, and they're making crazy changes and they're going nuts.
Yeah. A lot of times when George and I get audio from people and we look at it on the spectrograph and they're saying, I got a buzz or I got a hum or something like that. Defining terms is always pretty important because one person's buzz is another person's hum.
Exactly.
But looking at the spectrograph, if it's a 120 hertz or a 60 hertz buzz, we know exactly where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and if it's a 50 hertz, you know exactly which other continent it's coming from.
Right. It's 50 and 100. It's coming from the Europe and overseas.
Exactly.
Right, which is an electrical interference of some sort. Once again, we're talking with Durin Gleeves, who's product manager at Adobe, and we're talking about Adobe Audition. Again, if you've got questions about Audition, throw it in the chat room right now. We'll get to it in our next segment. What are your favorite features? Give us one or two that you really love. That you think that voice actors can benefit from, and show us how it works.
Yeah, well, the latest release we just came out with beginning of last week, so it's just been out about a week now. We've introduced 2 new real-time restoration effects. So de-reverb and de-noise.
Yes.
Audition's always had great noise reduction effects, but the de-reverb is something that's pretty new, and it's scary. It has no latency. It has no really low overhead. It doesn't take up a lot of CPU. It's really good, at least as good as several $100 solutions that are out there right now as plugins.
Right. So that would be like if you're in a room that is acoustically a little too lively, this is something that can help you adjust that.
Exactly, and you could just do it a little bit if you just need to soften a little bit. If it gets you far enough back to a baseline that you can then put reverb on to match other recordings, it's a way of rescuing recordings in that may not otherwise be salvageable. And it's so easy. I mean, really, this is all you need to know. Less, more, less, more. Yeah, you can come up here with some of this stuff, but this is an example of us trying to make it simpler and more approachable without having too many crazy parameters.
So that's in CC 2018. The most up to date?
It's technically the 2019 release, although I think we've officially taken the year off our branding.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
I'm calling it Adobe Audition CC, the
Gotcha.
2019 release.
Gotcha.
All right.
If you go up to your Audition about, what version does it say you're
12.0. The internal version is 12.0.
12.0. So look for that if you want to get that new feature.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break right now. I'm exhausted just watching all this stuff, but this is great. This is what VoiceOver Body Shop is all about.
Yeah, baby.
All right. Durham, it's great having you with us. We're going to get questions for you from our audience and demonstrate more stuff right after these important messages. We'll be right back.
Skittles, taste the rainbow.
She has fought for those who don't have a voice.
The National Zoo. Because sometimes you just need to stroke a llama.
Instagram. Download it and start embarrassing your teenagers today.
Resolve spot and stain. Because the dog's gonna drag his butt on the carpet. He just is.
$400 million. That's what the mayor wants you to pay for a new basketball stadium. Chickens were made to be fried.
Sorry, buddy.
KFC. Engage the droid army with this LEGO Star Wars Republic fighter tank.
What? You've never seen a girl kill a troll? GameStop.
Hey, I'm the cat meme guy. Come on, you know you love cat memes. Instagram. What's your thing?
Hi, it's J. Michael Collins, and these are just a few examples of the first-class demos my team and I are producing. If you'd like to have something similar, visit jmcvoiceover.com and click on the Demo Production tab to find out more.
All right, it's time to talk about our good friend Harlan Hogan and the amazing website he has, voiceoveressentials.com. And he told me today, he writes me every Monday and he says, talk about this. But this is really good news. The new and improved Harlan Hogan voice optimized headphone 2.0 has finally arrived. Some of the new evolutionary features based on user feedback, because God knows we give him a lot of feedback.
Absolutely.
It's important. It's a thicker, more comfortable headband. Let's have Mr. Whittam here. He can model it for us.
So this is I'm still wearing the 1.0 version, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
right?
but they look the same.
They're
I'm
similar
sure.
looking, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. They're the Harlan Hogan headphones.
I've
right
been wearing
there.
them all night.
Yes. has a thicker, more comfortable headband, a double-ended, easily replaceable cord with gold-plated plugs on both the can itself and the audio in-end.
Right.
That's
so right here on the new one, you'll be able to change this cable out
easily. Yeah.
Very
Instead
nice.
of having to solder it, which is not
We
fun.
like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Harlan.
That is a
Good feature.
great thing. Also, some subtle tweaks to the sound, giving it even a more transparent, truth-telling sound so necessary for voiceover monitoring work. For example, your actual sound and the actual sound of your recording space. No coloration to it all.
Yeah.
They're totally flat sounding, which is what you really want when you're doing
They don't
voiceover
sound
work.
like your consumer Sennheisers. These are Sennheisers, but your consumer Bluetooth headphones. These have a very different sound.
Right.
So you'll need to get used to that. When you go from your typical music headphones, these have a different sound, but they're more accurate. That's what makes them professional monitors.
And knowing our demographic, you don't listen to Yes on these.
Right.
Or Pink Floyd or one of those things. But anyway, you want a pair of those? Yes, you do. All you have to do to get them is go over to voiceoveressentials.com. Pretty easy to remember. Or even better, go to the bottom of our page and there's an icon, a picture of the one and only Harlan Hogan from his back. It doesn't look too bad. But he's talking into his Portabooth Pro, and click on that. It will take you right to voiceoveressentials.com and check out the new Harlan Hogan voice-optimized headphones with more comfortable, and they were already really comfortable. So they must feel like, a pair of earmuffs now. They sound great. They work great. They're for you, for voiceover only. So go there and buy them now or after the show.
Let me say one more thing, too.
Go. There's more?
They're very efficient.
Efficient.
Right, which means that if you plug these into any output, whether it be the old Scarlett 202, which was TI-2i2, which was notorious for having a pretty weak headphone amp, you should still get a good level into these headphones. So they're very efficient that way.
VoiceOverEssentials.com. Go there. Thanks, Harlan.
You're still watching VOBS?
All right, and we're back with Durin Gleeves from Adobe Audition. And we've got questions from our incredibly huge worldwide audience as we go on here. The first one is one that I'm sure you don't want to hear, but I think everybody knows about it. Natasha asks, my Adobe Audition is glitching lately, cutting out microseconds of audio randomly. Advice?
That's not good.
No, it isn't.
Needs more information.
There's a couple ways to troubleshoot that. Generally, first of all, when it happens, if you're seeing down in the lower right corner, does it say detected drop samples? That's key to understanding if it's related to writing to disk or if it's related to the audio as it's coming in to the application. There tends to be two sort of dropouts. One is where pieces of time the data is missing, and so you'll immediately jump from one part of one word to part of another word, and then there can be dropouts where the stream keeps coming in, but there's gaps. There's like silent bits, so you'll have a little gap in of silence.
Right, you'll hear snaps and stuff like that as that's happening.
Right, and so generally, when troubleshooting, if there's gaps of space, that tends to be, in my experience, it tends to be something going on either with the audio interface or the communication, the driver between the interface through the OS to Audition, or if it's jumping and it's losing that data, it tends to be related to the buffer size or the ability to write that information to disk fast enough. So in both cases, I would first go into the hardware preferences in Audition and increase the latency or the buffer size. That just gives a bigger bowl of audio samples to get into before Audition tries to pour it into the file or get it up onto the screen. If it's too low, then we're trying to capture and save that audio more quickly than, say, the hard drive is able to read it, or if other applications are running, then the OS may preempt Audition's access to do something with that data.
Right. And there's been a couple of glitches with the latest release, and like one you'll hit record, stop, and start recording again, and the spectrograph will be there, but the waveform will disappear. But if you highlight it and copy it and put it back, oh, there's the waveform again.
Yeah, that was a bug on the last release earlier this year that affected certain systems, and I don't remember the specifics of why. It was some combination of OS and video driver and all that. In any case, it should absolutely be fixed in the release that came out last week.
Nice.
Cool.
Have you had any issues with anybody now with an SSD drive? Because I tell people that if they do have any drive issues where it's, you're like you said, loss of audio, where it skips, but there's no gap there. I've been telling people to upgrade to SSDs, and that seems to completely take care of it, right?
Oh, that's the single biggest improvement I think anybody can make to their workstation is a fast SSD drive.
That's a solid state drive. That's not a spinning hard drive, but a flash drive. Like that's the kind of memory that's in your iPhone or an iPad.
Exactly. Heavy duty RAM is what
it's very fast.
So fast, and it's not prone to all of the physics problems that spinning platter hard drives run into.
Right.
Yeah, it's hands down more than upgrading your CPU, more than upgrading your RAM. For sheer performance, SSD is a huge deal.
Yeah. All right, you get this week's Jack Attack.
Yes. Our own chat room moderator, Jack Daniel, asks, "Hey, Durin, I love the Adobe suite. In fact, I lived across from your Adobe building on 7th Street when I lived in San Francisco. Question about Audition. Will you provide preset options for file saving from export anytime soon?" Well, I guess what he's saying is I have a few file types I need to save to. I save to high-res MP3, 48K 320, regular MP3, which is 44.192, and WAV files, 44 or 48 kilohertz, 24-bit. There's some very limited ability to create presets in these savings, but no way to keep them all those parameters in place. I always have to make a few clicks when I change from these formats, clicking the change button, etc. Seems like an easy fix, but I'm not a programmer. Could that functionality be added?
I'll tell you what I would love for you and anybody else who wants that to do. Launch Audition, click Help, Provide Feedback.
Yes.
You do a website called User Voice is the company, and it lets you submit feature requests. And Adobe is paying a lot for this service.
Right.
So feature requests that come into the expensive stuff tend to get a little more higher priority. That said, there are some things that can maybe simplify that a little bit for you right now. There's as you probably discovered, there's several, as with anything in Audition, there's several ways to accomplish the same task. And if you open a file and you just choose File Save or Save As, Audition will always default to the same file settings as that source media. So if you open a WAV file that's 48K stereo and you hit Save As, we're going to default those settings to 48K stereo in an effort to do, no harm accidentally. If you choose File Export, we'll always use the last used setting. So if you're constantly making a bunch of MP3s or at certain characteristics, then those last used settings will always be the default for that file export path. That said, I'd love to see format presets as part of the saving operation. So please go give us your support on that User Voice site, provide that feedback, and I'll make sure that it gets in front of the engineering team.
You know what? I'm going to do that as well, but I'm going to do that for a feature where you can easily export and then import effects rack presets. That's something that would be handy. I figured out a workaround where we use session files to then as a way to transport racks in and out of the system.
Yep. This has been pretty important to me as well.
Works fine. That is a workable workaround, but that's a feature where we would love to see. So I'll make sure to make use of that feature on the website.
Fantastic.
T-Man has a question. He says, does Durin have any advice for people who would use Audition in a virtual machine?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, we do a lot of testing in virtual machines because I don't want to have 15 workstations on top of my desk at home or work. Generally for non-latency critical uses, you can get away with it, especially if you're using an ASIO interface to communicate with the hardware, and you can let the VM OS access the ASIO device. It means your main system won't have access to it, but you'll be able to access it that way.
Geek alert.
Oh yeah, now
I know it's a geek
now
alert.
we're getting into it.
But essentially what that is, and this will be really quick, ASIO was developed by Steinberg as a way for an application to communicate with an audio interface, a Sapphire or a RME or whatever, and bypass Windows, not have to go through Windows, which slows everything down, which does great because it makes everything compatible with everything else, but it does so at a cost of performance and flexibility. So the ASIO, which you don't need to know what it means or what it stands for, but it just lets you kind of go around Windows and talk directly to the audio hardware device.
That's great. I mean, I do teach webinars, and I do some where I have multiple DAWs open. Some of them Windows, some of them Mac, and I will use VMware and have several different apps, softwares running in Windows without problems, as long as the audio hardware can talk to the software through the VMware tool. It seems to be fine. I don't record to a VMware thing, but for playback, it's been fine. So there's a follow-up for that also. Let's see. Would he say it would present the same product going through a VM? That I'm not quite sure what he's saying.
Yeah, but the other question.
But there's another one that's a little more clear. Is there a mod or a setup or pre-worked configuration you can apply to Audition to have it ready for just voice actors? I guess what he's saying is there a way to load an XML file or some other way? That way I don't have all the unneeded features distracting me. So I think he's looking for ways to hack the interface.
Yeah, just to create the right workspace for a voice.
Yeah, because I know you had the workspace function, but
and hide. We don't have a way to hide menu items right now, so things you don't use will still be there, whether you use them or not. But we certainly have the ability to minimize or customize the interface itself, so you can get rid of panels you don't need. And even if you do have those panels up and maybe you're going to need them after a little bit, I'll show you when we go back to the screen share. I'll show you one little trick that can hide those until you absolutely need them and bring them back, and then hide them again.
Well, you can do that right now. And then we've got one more question.
Awesome.
Perfect.
So once you go to the screen share, and then we can demonstrate that.
Sure.
And then I got one good question from Fred.
Fantastic. So right now, I've got this panel, and you can customize the layout however you like. So if I wanted my effects rack over here on the right side of my waveform, I can just grab that tab, and you see as I'm moving it around, these little purple spots that appear, these are just kind of layout. These are like drop zones or something like that. So if I drop it just on this right side of the waveform view, it'll pop up over here, and I can move that over, and I can save this as a new workspace that's just for me. If I want it back over here, I can certainly just move it back, reorder these things. But what's really cool is if I have my mouse cursor is over a panel and I want to make that panel full screen, I can hit the tilde key, the little jalapeno N key, and just quickly make whatever panel my mouse is over full screen.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's very quick, very easy. I can work this way until I need to get back to my files panel. I can click it, pick a different file, and zoom in here again.
I like that. I also heard rumors that you had an Easter egg for us.
Well, for the valued VOBS.TV audience, yes, keep it secret. Shh. If you
won't hear it from us.
If you're in a long session, you've been slogging away, you need a break, you don't want to look at this waveform anymore, you just want to do something a little mindless, come on up here and ask about Adobe Audition right up here in the corner. And this is a pretty boring sort of communist looking panel here. But, if you take a look, there's a couple of letter O's here. And if you were to click in one, you might just see something happen here. And if you were to grab these and play with them.
Oh, it's a physics game.
It's a physics
you can
game.
juggle with
and
them.
and then, you know, there's different command clicks and control clicks and shift clicks.
Whoa!
You can start having some fun with
Somebody
this stuff.
was bored at Adobe one day.
That's a pretty cool little Easter egg.
And
that
so
is cool, man.
It's a nice way to kind of waste some time. And
So since we've been horsing around, now all of a sudden we get a few more questions. We want maybe squeeze one or two more in.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
talked earlier about auto heal. We know what it does, but
my favorite function.
Fred asked, what does auto heal do for you?
Good question. There's a couple different ways, but auto heal is a way to sonically repair short little problems of sound. So if you have somebody who's mouth sounds or something like that, or you know, I'm typing and there's a little click on the keyboard. You can see in this waveform, there's a lot of these little short bursts, and this actually may not be short bursts, but because this is a pretty long recording. But let's see if I can find one that's going to show it off well. Yeah, we'll try it. Let's wing it. Let's wing it live.
Go
right?
for it.
Do it live.
That's what we do around here, buddy.
So,
our theme is every week is an Apollo 13.
So auto heal, you can select one of these little bursts and choose auto heal from the menu, and you can see that little spike is gone. If I zoom in and I bring up the spectral view, you'll see what happens is it's not just like a delete or a silence. We're not putting a big hole of digital silence where there's this vacuum of frequencies there. We're actually filling in from around that selection. And so you get this nice smooth cutouts, this nice little smooth removal. And it doesn't just require you doing it in that full frequency range too. If there's a anomaly see right here, this section all happens above between 4K and about 13K. So I could just come in here and select just this section and use auto heal, and we'll fill in again from the frequencies around. But if there's audio recording and information down here that I want to keep, I don't lose it. I don't touch it. I'm only dealing with doing that correction up here in the frequency ranges that are selected.
What's the maximum usable time? Like how much time in the timeline can you auto heal at once?
It depends on the sample rate.
Yeah.
So there is a limit. If I was to make a pretty big selection and I was to try to do this, it would kick back and say it's too long.
Yeah.
But based on the sample rate
of
the file that I'm working on. So.
I've used it to like fix mic pops.
Oh, really?
Which are really low frequency.
Yep.
I mean,
you come down here, you can do that same kind of thing. Yeah. So
you can really, people say, can I fix this audio? Sure, no problem. Throw in the auto heal in there. It's a miracle.
Yeah. So you can even use the healing brush here to just come in and paint that stuff out like that. Yeah. And I don't know if I did it or not. Let me try it again. A little bit.
Yeah, it reduces it. It's great. Got one more question here from Devox, who's never short of questions. And one that I would ask, and I think a lot of people ask of George and I, it's about noise reduction. Our philosophy is try to avoid making the noises in the first place.
Right.
But if you're in a somewhat marginal situation,
hotel room, for example,
stuff like that. Do you have any tips for using the noise reduction function, minimum, maximum, sample, etc. forms of that sort of thing?
There's a couple kinds of noise reduction tools in here, right?
Yeah. But I'm with you 100%. If you can not get the noise in the first place, it's bad for my job longevity. But that's obviously the best. I know a lot of journalists, when they're in the conditions where they're trying to record a radio piece, but they can't get to a studio, they tend to take the duvet off the hotel bed, throw it over their head, and record inside underneath a bunch of blankets.
We resemble that remark.
Yeah. If you can't do any of that, if you've got the recording and there's no way, there's there's several tools. There's several effects. I showed you one of them here, the new denoise. Audition has this button right up here in the corner called the preview editor. So I can actually come up here and get a before and after view
Oh, yeah.
Before I've applied the noise reduction.
Cool.
So if I crank this up to 100, you'll see all this kind of ghostly pink and purple goes away, but so does a lot of that audio signal. I don't want to do that.
Right.
So we come back here a little bit. And in this case, and with both of our with all of our noise reduction effects, we have the option here to output noise only. So if you toggle this, we'll just show you what's being removed, and you can actually start to dial this in less or more so that you're having less of that signal that you want to keep, less of your actual voice that shows up down here. Just don't forget to uncheck it before you click apply.
Right.
The other option, or another option, and this one's a little more in depth, but it's our kind of classic legacy noise reduction effect. And this works by selecting a region or a portion of the audio file that is just noise, that doesn't have any signal you want to keep, and using that to train the algorithm and say, this is what I want to keep, pull this out of the rest of the recording. So I made a little selection here, which was mostly, there wasn't any voice in there. Told it to capture that noise print, and then selected the whole file. So there's things in here we can do to really make it dramatic and see what it's going to, see how it works. But really, you're going to want to come back and use something a little more reasonable. The goal shouldn't be at that point to get rid of all the noise altogether. It should be to get it down to the lowest possible level without affecting your dialogue. If you go too far, you start getting that chirpy, warbly, watery sound, and you certainly don't want that. That's more distracting than a little bit of room tone in the recording.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're doing all this graphically for you guys to see, but you do have to trust your ears. You're going to want to play these things back and monitor them and adjust them by ear to make sure you're not, ruining the integrity of the audio.
Which is the great thing about non-destructive audio.
Yeah.
Something like this. It's like, you don't like it, you screw it up, just undo.
Absolutely.
Show us your camera again, Durin, or do you want to have a parting demo?
I was just going to give you one more little piece of advice with the noise reduction effect here.
Good.
You can get far better results if you do 2 or 3 light passes than trying to get all the noise out in one pass.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Take a noise print, capture that, do a 20%, 25% reduction. Take another noise print from somewhere else in the file, do the same thing. You get far, far better results.
Ooh, that's the trick. See, that's I've heard the repeat, but I didn't know about the taking another noise print.
Yeah, so then the next
doing
time,
it again.
Yeah, take a different noise print. If you really want to be judicious about it, you can pop down into the advanced section and choose a different FFT size.
Whoa.
It's a little geekery, but what that does is it just defines how fine the different frequency bands that we analyze are. And so with different FFT sizes and different noise prints, you get some of the reduction will be better for high frequencies. Some of it will be better for low frequencies.
Whoa.
That's heavy duty, man.
That's cool, dude. All right, get your camera back on.
Yeah, so we can say goodbye to you.
Say goodbye. Durin, this has been fabulous. This is what our show's all about.
Yeah.
I love it. Thanks so much for having me and for, being patient. We've been trying to do this for months, so I'm really happy it worked out.
Great. And hope you're feeling better from the little cold you have. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, I mean, you said hit the help button and stuff like that, but can they contact you at Adobe and bother you there?
Yeah, hit me on Twitter at Durin Gleeves. You can always email us if you have a crash report or something important. audbugs@adobe.com. We'll come right to the team. I'll see it. Most of the engineering team and quality team will see it. Otherwise, if it's a feature request, if it's something that you want to get support for, go to that provide feedback link in the Adobe Audition help menu. It allows you to vote on other things as well. So the more features that get upvotes, the higher these things get voted, the more critical they become to the team. So
I got a ton of thanks coming at you from the chat room. A lot of very grateful people in the chat room. So thanks again.
All righty. Thanks, Durin, for being with us. Look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely. Thanks, you both. Have a great day.
All right. Well, oh boy, that's a lot.
That's what I was hoping for.
That's a lot of geekery. All right. Well, we'll be right back to wrap things up and ungeek your minds right after these messages.
Your dynamic voiceover career requires extra resources to keep moving ahead. Now there's one place where you can explore everything the voiceover industry has to offer. That place is voiceoverextra.com. Whether you're just exploring a voiceover career or a seasoned veteran ready to reach that next professional level, stay in touch with market trends, coaching, products, and services while avoiding scams and other pitfalls. VoiceOver Extra has hundreds of articles, free resources, and training that will save you time and help you succeed. Learn from the most respected talents, coaches, and industry insiders when you join the online sessions bringing you the most current information on topics like audiobooks, auditioning, casting, home studio setup and equipment, marketing, performance techniques, and much more. It's time to hit your one-stop daily resource for voiceover success. Sign up for a free subscription to newsletters and reports and get 14 bonus reports on how to ace the voiceover audition. It's all here at voiceoverextra.com. That's voiceoverextra.com.
All right, and time to say goodbye. Now it's time to say goodbye to all our family. But we have to first tell them who's going to be on next week. Well, it's supposed to be Jonathan Tilley.
Very cool.
Who will be here next weekend, and I'll be recording some stuff with him, and we'll try and get out of him all the most important stuff about your marketing plans. Then on November 5th, the live concert here. Make sure you check it out on our Facebook page. You can get tickets for that and be here at the VoiceOver Body Shop for the live concert with Sol Icanto and the Amadors and a couple of other little surprises. I've got to rehearse a little bit. Who are our donors of the week?
Well, first comes from our familiar names here, Tracy H. Reynolds, Andrew Kaufman, one from my dad who I saw over the weekend who asked me, how do you cancel those things again? And I refused to tell him. Eric Aragoni, another one of our very regular sponsors, donors, Thomas Pinto, Shelley Avellino.
We saw a lot of her last
You guys hear these names? Yes, she was at the party. Brian Page and Amanda Fellows. So thank you so much. Donate if you can, if you like, or just keep watching and visit our sponsors. Either way, you help us out, and then you help yourself out by keeping us on the air.
That's right. And, of course, if you need help personally, you can work with George. Where do they go?
GeorgeTheTech.com or Dan over at
HomeVoiceOverStudio.com.
Yay!
Easy to do. All right. You know, we're live here almost every Monday, including November 5th, which you really want to be here for live. If you want to be here in our studio audience, write to us again. And then you're in the greater Los Angeles area, and it is pretty great. Write to us at theguys@vobs.tv, and in the subject line put audience, and I will give you the secret handshake.
Yes,
show us your booths. Whose booth is this tonight?
This is the Jeff Collins, I believe, who is a client I worked with down in Nashville. Real nice space. That's his control room. Off to the side over here is his
Behind your
ISO
head.
booth.
Yeah.
It's a great space. Really, really comfortable. Lots of room. High ceilings. Nice place.
Send us your booths in landscape, not in
Say
portrait.
no to vertical photos, vertical videos.
Yeah,
no.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You guys know about my podcast. Go check that out. We just released one it was an 8-microphone shootout. We all love mic shootouts. Go give it a listen. That's the Pro Audio Suite. SUITE.
All right. Of course, let's see. We need to thank our sponsors like Harlan Hogan's VoiceOver Essentials,
VoiceOver Extra,
Source Elements,
VO to Go,
VoiceActorWebsites.com,
and J. Michael Collins Demos.
We'd also like to acknowledge the Dan and Marcy Leonard Foundation for the betterment of live webcasting, our amazing producer, Catherine Curtin, for getting us great guests like Durin Gleeves, Jack Daniel on the chat room and from his sick bed, and, of course, our technical director, even though she's a Red Sox fan, Sue Merlino. This is going to be an interesting week with Los Angeles and Boston in the
And
World
Sue's
Series.
son, Mike, is here tonight.
Yes. All right, Mike. All right. And, of course, Lee Penny for being Lee Penny. Well, you know, this ain't an easy business. Voiceover is tough. You got to be prepared technologically as well as being a great performer. But, as we always say, when it comes to your sound, if it sounds right, it is right.
Good, right.
What? All righty. That's going to do it for us this week. We'll see you next Monday night with Jonathan Tilley and lots more voiceover stuff. So have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Happy birthday, Randy Thomas.
I'm Dan Leonard.
And I'm George Whittam.
And this is VoiceOver
Body Shop.
Or VOBS.
Bye.
Toodaloo.